We are just a few weeks away from one of the biggest Apple events ever, and usually WWDC has some funny Craig montages and some cool special effects, but it's mostly about code and framework and things like that. But this year's event is shaping up to be a little different. In fact, it might actually be home to some pretty big product announcements, as this is Tim Cook's last official event as CEO, so he might be looking to go out with a one more thing or two that Apple fans are going to love. Let me break down all the wild latest last-minute leaks before WWDC kicks off, and also give a huge thanks to our friends over at Incogni for sponsoring this video. All right, everybody, so prepare yourself for one final
Good morning!
As this will be the last kind of official Apple event that Tim Cook will kind of host as CEO, because come September 1st and crazy iPhone 18 season, Apple's gonna have a new CEO and a new man on stage, and that is going to be John Ternus. And I guess with that being said, the expectations are that this is gonna be a pretty big year for a number of reasons. Big software updates, of course new products, but let me start first with what we will not see. iPhone 18 Pro, Pro Max, new Air, new Fold, all of those are coming, but they're not coming at this June event. But again, there are gonna be a couple of hints and clues as to what the big new features will be, but I'll come back to that more in just a moment. First, I kind of want to set your expectations as to what we will get with iOS 27 and macOS 27 and all the new software, because this is going to be a year of refinements and hopefully a year that Apple finally makes good on some long overdue promises. So even though the Dynamic Island father, the guy that did Liquid Glass, Alan Dye, is no longer at Apple, Liquid Glass is still going to be a thing moving into iOS 27. So don't expect any major design changes. Everything is gonna look basically the same as what we've got right now, but the fundamental things under the hood, kind of the nuts and bolts of the OS, those should be refined and bugs should be squashed, because according to the latest leaks right now, what'll be kind of quietly one of the biggest new features of iOS 27 is that with all of the Apple Intelligence updates, you'll actually be able to kind of swap out the brain for whatever you want to use. So you can kind of use the default method, which should be a better brain trained on a partnership with Google and Gemini, but also if you want to swap it out for an OpenAI brain or a Claude Anthropic brain or whatever the new AI model is in 6 months, you'll be able to do that relatively easily. You'll be able to chat with it kind of like you would all the other chat bots of the different AI services. There's going to be a dedicated Siri app. There's going to be a new way to experience Siri and Apple Intelligence in the Dynamic Island. And then also there's going to be a couple of special Siri/Apple Intelligence features built into the camera and the Photos app. So like one-tap photo editing and enhancements and things like that. I think Google does something similar. I'm sure they have something on Android. Will be coming with iOS 27 to all iPhones that support it. Though I do want to point out that one area you definitely want to look at and what new features come is going to be with the iPad. Not because iPadOS is going to be revolutionary, I'm sure it's going to get better and can do more things and be more capable, but because given the form factor of the iPhone Fold and how closely that mirrors the iPad mini, there's a lot of talk that what Apple might do is steal a bunch of iPad features and bring them over to this iPhone Fold. So you would have a vertical and horizontal home screen. You might be able to actually run side-by-side apps to better utilize that space, and maybe even Apple Pencil support could finally come to this phone as well. It just makes sense given the form factor, and I honestly wouldn't even be all that surprised if the iPhone Fold can maybe just run both iOS and iPadOS. I know they're kind of the same thing, but maybe Apple markets that as a big selling point. Given the form factor, it just makes a lot of sense, and I think there's gonna be a lot of clues there. So definitely, if you're interested in what the folding iPhone can and can't do, be sure to pay special attention to iPadOS and what new features we see on that front. Also, if you're curious as to where all this info is coming from for new iPhones and new Macs and new crazy Apple features, well, the leaks and rumors are pretty easily floating all around the web just a couple of clicks away, which is great for for us, but not so great for Apple trying to keep secrets. And also on the flip side, it kind of makes you think, if that's easily floating around online, what else is floating around online? Like our personal information, our name, our address, our phone number, other sensitive info. Unfortunately, that is also just a couple of simple clicks away on the web, which we do not want to be the case, which is why I love the experts over at Incogni, because this is what they do best. They are on a mission to help you protect your personal info and get it back under your control. The onboarding process is super simple, just takes a couple of simple clicks, and then their team of pros get to work, and they're gonna contact the data brokers and the people search websites and all the random websites that have this info. They know who to contact, where to go. They work on your behalf to get this information flagged, reviewed, and then removed from the web, so you cannot have your personal address easily searched up by someone in 2 seconds. And then also what's cool is if you do happen to run across a website that you want to manually submit to the team, you can make that manual submission now in just a couple of simple clicks. So now is the time to take control and get your personal information back with the help of the pros at Incogni. In fact, if you guys go to the link down below and use the code AppleCircle or go to incogni.com/AppleCircle, you're actually going to get a special 60% off discount of an annual plan. So if you guys want to learn more, take advantage of that discount and get your personal information back and secured and removed, go with the pros at Incogni. And again, link is going to be down below to get 60% off an annual plan today. And then even if you don't care at all about Apple Intelligence, one of the other reasons this is exciting is that if Apple can finally nail this down and get it right, it should open the floodgates for a bunch of new products that are ready to go and ready to be released, but have just been waiting on this new smarter Siri. So things as simple as new updated Apple TVs and new HomePods and HomePod minis, they really rely on Siri and Apple Intelligence, so having that finally done should lead to a nice little refresh across the board, maybe some new colors, some audio tweaks with HomePods and things like that. And then of course, this also ushers in a new era of new categories of products and things that Apple is set to release basically at any moment now. For example, we've heard this new home control pod thing, a combination of an iPad on a robotic arm with a HomePod base. This thing is basically ready to go. There is also, of course, plenty of opportunity, given how well the Mac is doing right now, to do some more Mac updates. There have, I think, been some issues though with supply chain restrictions and silicon restrictions and things like that on what Apple can do. So I'm not sure if M5 updates are ready for all Macs, but there are some lingering things like the Mac Studio, which could certainly get a nice silicon boost. We've heard some rumblings of maybe the iMac Pro coming back as a new kind of ultra high-end iMac. So maybe that is something that could make its debut. And then the more exciting things though, like the touchscreen MacBook Ultra, those wouldn't come until the fall, we're hearing, and then updates to the MacBook Neo, which is doing wildly well, wouldn't be coming until next year. So there are still some M5 updates that could be coming. And then I do think though, if this is Tim Cook's last event, which by all accounts it will be his last one as CEO, I do think there could be room for Apple to throw in a one more thing on some kind of new product. And we've heard there are a couple of things in the pipeline. We know that Apple is working on glasses, like real Apple glasses, but those aren't ready just yet. But there are two other products that could be ready sooner than we originally thought. One of them is AirPods Ultra, basically an AirPods version with cameras built in and some Apple Intelligence smarts for better gesture control and the ability to use intelligence to see the world around you. And then kind of adjacent to that, and a little bit more interesting, is a little bit like a pendant, some kind of wearable Apple Intelligence device that you would wear that would also have a camera and be able to see the world around you, kind of like the Humane pin, even though that thing did terrible, but maybe Apple's got something figured out that they didn't. We've heard this new kind of wearable AI thing is something that Apple has been working aggressively on and is something that we could actually see in June. And given the need for developers to rally around this thing and given it's kind of Tim Cook's last hurrah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the things we see as kind of a surprise product announcement at this June event. And then, of course, beyond the usual updates to HomeOS and watchOS and iPad and Mac and all those things, that's kind of what we know right now. And again, given how little, relatively speaking, we know about this stuff, could either mean things are going to be really good and exciting and a lot of surprises, or it could be kind of disappointing and not that good. So I'll let you guys know as we learn more in the development space on what's happening and what's going to be coming, but let me know your thoughts down below. What are you looking forward to for WWDC? And also Tim Cook's last event, his last good morning. Are you happy, sad, ready to move on? Drop a comment down below. Let us know. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much for watching. I am Robert Rosenfeld from TAC, and I'll see you guys in the next one.